Listeners, this week's song is Black Pyramid. It appears on the album Bottoms Up from the band Agent Octopus. You can find them at agentoctopus.wixsite.com/Agent Octopus, or just follow the link in the show notes over at our website, monsterkidradio.net. That, of course, is the website for the podcast, Monster Kid Radio. The podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear, and this week it's the podcast that's announcing the winners of this year's Monster Rally Retro Awards. We actually call them the rallies around here. Every year we honor the best in genre cinema, and this year we're taking a look at 1934, 44, and 54. I'm excited to announce the winners. Earlier this year, I had the ballot open to everybody, and you guys and gals cast your vote to let me know who the best actor, actress, director, movie, and monster were from those years. And now we're going to announce the winners of that with my friend, your friend, author Stephen D. Sullivan. He's going to be joining me, Derek M. Cook, to announce the winners. Of course, that's not all we have going on in this episode of Monster Kid Radio. We've got a Weird Wednesday report from Jeff Polier, talking about a movie that made him very happy. He's got a little bit of news to share about what's coming up on an upcoming Weird Wednesday event at the Joy Cinema, and I'll talk about that. We also have some feedback, and that means I'm joined by my lovely wife, Brenda. She is back on the show because she's back in town, and she missed you guys and gals, and she's joining me to go over your feedback, your emails here on the episode. Of course, that's going to happen towards the end of the episode. Middle of the episode, we have the Rally Awards. Before that, we hear the Weird Wednesday report, and before that, well, we've got this.
Thunderbird International Pictures presents The Death Curse of Tartu, a legend black with evil and red with the blood of innocent youth. Photographed in the forbidding depths of the Florida Everglades, this is the incredible story of an archaeological excursion planned as an educational adventure and ending as a blood-spattered nightmare of incarnate hallucinations. Cold and slimy creatures without mercy hunt and kill, controlled by the soul of a rotting corpse. They danced over the grave of Tartu, who was restless in his coffin, and made passionate love on his burial mound until...
Julie, what is it?
They faced the terrible reality of the death curse of Tartu. Was it really a killer shark in the swamp waters? Or was it Tartu, who had sworn vengeance on all who disturbed his grave?
If we sit here and wait, it's only a matter of time until Tartu will destroy us all.
Thrilled to the heart-stopping suspense of scenes that spare no detail of horror. See the bloody massacre of terrified youngsters as Tartu the Witch Doctor returns to wreak vengeance. See The Death Curse of Tartu, coming soon to this theater.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett, the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast about eclectic film from across the decade. On The Bloody Pit, we've covered Godzilla movies, Doctor Who movies starring Peter Cushing, The Outer Limits, Fu Manchu, Doc Savage, old radio shows, my favorite movies of all time, a Lucio Fulci film or two, 1970s science fiction movies, and a long series on the films of Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti. So if you're curious to learn a little bit about some of the stranger areas of cult film and television, join me and my rotating group of co-hosts on The Bloody Pit. You might even learn something about Coffin Joe. And that's scary, people. Very scary.
Let's prepare for a landing, Brad.
Okay. In a 40G gravity atmosphere, strange thing happens to man's body and mind. Barry Sullivan and Norma Bengell take you into the most fantastic science fiction adventure ever filmed.
Emergency! Emergency! Conditions desperate. Little chance of survival. Help us.
Mark, look!
What have you got?
The Galliot.
Bert, get me a fix on this right now. Wes, Brad, controls.
Planet of the vampires. Harboring a form of life worse than death. Planet of the bloodless. Creatures who take men's bodies, but attack like vampires.
I'll tell you this, if there are any intelligent creatures on this planet, they're our enemies.
In this outer space world, the living dead try to escape into life.
Salas. No, just his body. And I'm just one of many beings on this planet. And we're fighting to survive. It's imperative that our race continue to exist. We arranged for several of you to kill each other so that we could take over your bodies. You are our last chance.
No, never. We'll all of us give up our lives to save our own race.
Hi, Derek and the Monster Kids. This is Jeff Polier, calling in with a Weird Wednesday report. Last Wednesday, for Weird Wednesday at the Joy Cinema in Tigard, it was The Mad Monster from 1942. And, well, I'm proud to say this was a great movie. So, the plot is that in a secluded house outside a secluded village, a scientist is working to develop a formula, kind of a super soldier formula, to combine man and beast to make them into more effective soldiers, basically killers that could just tear through the enemy ranks. And he's using the gardener and groundskeeper as his test subject. It's kind of a scientific take on the Wolfman, because he transforms this guy through chemical means into a wolf-like creature, and then uses him to murder the scientists that have previously scoffed at him. So the mad monster of the title, in my opinion, is not the poor groundskeeper turned wolfman. It's the scientist himself. He is a monster. He is a terrible, terrible person. And for a while I was thinking maybe he was just amoral, that is, science above everything. But during the course of the film I decided, no, he's actually evil. He is the mad monster of the title. It's a black and white film. I don't remember what studio it was. It wasn't Universal, but I don't know why this movie isn't up there with some of the Universal features in terms of love from Monster Kids, because it was a great acted movie. I think the directing was well done. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I highly recommend that people go out and watch this movie. You know, even if you can't see it on the big screen, see it on your little screen. It's well done, very well done. So, there you go. Now you're up to date. And tonight, I'll be going to the Joy again for another Weird Wednesday, and I'll let you know how that went. Have a great week, everybody.
Jeff, thanks for calling that in. And I gotta tell you, man, I just love hearing the enthusiasm here. I haven't seen that movie in a very long time, but you are putting it on my to-watch list right near the top to go back and revisit, because it sounds amazing. And listeners, earlier tonight, I received a message from Jeff, who was at this week's Weird Wednesday. I don't remember what they were showing this week, but I'm sure he'll call it in. Anyway, he was telling me that next week, Weird Wednesday is showing Return of the Vampire. I am so there.
Planet 13.
Come in to Mortuary of 18 Living Nightmares,
Where Carlochrome of Hollywood presents
Horror.
For the first time on stage, the Fourth Dimension.
Can it be true that any volunteer will be decapitated with a meat cleaver?
See it, hear it, and actually feel it.
Unbelievable but true. 13, 14, 15 knives will be driven through the head of any unsuspecting person.
If there is anyone left, after the crawling thing from Planet 13 creeps over the audience seeking fresh human blood.
Look out for the monsters, skeletons, and other creatures flying above you, running after you to rip your flesh apart.
Carlochrome, the master of horror, has more delicate acts.
Lady Godiva on a white horse, drifting in midair.
For those who will embarrass easily, blindfolds will be furnished free with peeking hole.
In case you pass out during this triple horror science mystery show, that's tough.
Pleasant nightmares, friends.
Mary, no!
God, let go!
I simply don't understand it.
Of course, the sound is coming from the basement.
It's all right. I've got you, Mr. Adam.
No.
Show me what?
Gotta get away from those eyes! Get away! Get away!
George,
get away!
no!
Are you attracted to the dark, fascinated by the dramatic, with a side of gruesome and a dash of poetic justice? If your happy place is a gloomy room at midnight, then you should be listening to the podcast 12 Chimes It's Midnight. Please join us, won't you, for plays of mystery, horror, and suspense. Find us and subscribe wherever you procure your podcasts. And remember, at midnight, anything can happen.
Trapped! Trapped! Trapped!
They're trapped in a whirlpool of shrieking fear from the most fiendish idea ever conceived by the human brain.
The Brainiac!
And it has a friend. She was beautiful, desirable, and not altogether human.
The curse of the crying women.
Together they will trap you in a whirlpool of horror. But if you live through it, you will never forget.
The Brainiac and the curse of the crying women.
Hey gang, I thought I'd drop in here real quick and just let you know what the format's going to be for the Rally Award winners. Basically what we do every year. We're going to have Steve join me here in a second, and we're going to announce the winners for the 34, 44, and then 54 categories. We're going to do each decade separately, and between each decade, we'll do a little something else. So let's go ahead and play what we've come to view as our official Rally's music, and that would be the song Kashyyyk Beach Party from the album Meanwhile in Mallorca from the band Hattori Hanzo Surf Experience. Let's do it. Time for the rallies, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the Monster Kid Rally Retro Awards. We've been doing this every year. This is the 4th year. And every year we have a tradition. We have Stephen D. Sullivan join us to not only announce the ballot, which we did earlier this year, but announce the winners. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, it's great to be back. I can't believe it's been 4 years that we've been doing this. It seems like both shorter and forever.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe my math is wrong. Maybe this is only year 3. So 31, 32, 33. No, this is 34. Math is hard. I'm a monster guy, not a math kid.
There is.
So,
Well, it might actually be the 5th year because we had kind of a year where something all went wrong and it didn't come.
Yeah.
So maybe we've actually been doing 5 years. I don't know. It's at least 4.
Yeah. Either way, the Rally Awards. We're going to get to this. This is something that I'm really excited about. I always like doing awards shows on my podcast. Back in my previous podcasting days, I did yearly award shows on that show, and I love doing it. And I love that Steve came up with the idea to do it the way that we do it. We look at 3 decades, the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and come up with the best actor, actress, movie, director, and just, best monster and best movie altogether, I believe.
Yep.
I'd have to look at the ballot again. I'm unsure, and I'm the one who came up with it, most of it. But what we do is we look at 3 years, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and Steve came up with the idea of doing 31, 41, 51, 32, 33, and so on. And this year we're doing 1934, 44, and 55.
So we could do it in like 10 years rather than like 30.
Yeah, we didn't want to do 1 year at a time. I mean, not that I don't mind talking about monster movies for, 60 years, but so this year we're doing 1934, 44, and 54. And we're going to get to that, but there's a few pieces of business we need to deal with before we get into all of that. First of all, Steve, happy belated birthday.
Oh, thanks. That was yesterday as we record this.
So Steve is now 29 years old.
Yep. It's the 30th anniversary of my 29th birthday.
There you go. And as a birthday present to Steve, I think all the listeners should get involved with Dr. Cushing's.
Now, it's a great time to do it. I'm not sure when this will be out. If it's out before Halloween,
it will be.
We'll be finishing up Dr. Cushing Halloween. And that's just the way. I did not plan this. That is just the way it worked out. So over the next month and a half as we record this, we'll be getting the final chapters of Dr. Cushing up on the site. And if you get in before then, you get to see it all before it previews publicly or premieres publicly. CushingHorrors.com.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to play the promo later on in this episode, but I wanted you to have an opportunity to tell people about what it is. It's a serialized story that speaks to everything Monster Kid, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a serialized classic monster story in the tradition. If you took Universal's traditions and Hammer's traditions and kind of melded them together. I don't want to say smashed or anything because I think it's pretty seamless that you meld those two traditions together and that gives you Dr. Cushing. We have a mummy and a vampire and a werewolf in it, and there's a kind of a mad sculptor in the tradition of House of Wax or any number of other similar movies. There's just a lot of Monster Kid stuff in Dr. Cushing. We've got a kind of the Van Helsing-ish monster researcher character. We have twin daughters who have some psychic abilities. We've got lots of monsters, the 3 main monsters I mentioned, but there's also other little hints and treats for monster kids that are kind of paying attention, and a couple of them come right near the end of the series where hopefully people go, oh, that's... And then they get that little revelation. And it comes out every other week, free online on my site, sdsullivan.com. And if you want to support it, CushingHorrors.com.
Right, that's a Patreon campaign that Steve's got running. And I'll make sure there's links in the show notes, of course. And like I said, I'll play the promo for this as well later on in this episode.
And I will be fairly soon, I think, asking people what they want to see me do next after Dr. Cushing, whether they want me to go right into a Dr. Cushing sequel, whether they'd like a sequel to Daikaiju Attack, Giant Monster Attack story, whether they want to go into the Frost Arrow stories, which I think is kind of my tendency that I'm going to want to do next, just because I've had those stories around for more than 20 years now. And I kept thinking, I'm going to rewrite them. And now I'm thinking, I'm not going to rewrite them. I'm going to polish them and get them out there so people can see them so I can move forward. Because that was planned to be a series of books that was going to be at least 30 books long.
Wow.
It's not going to be that long anymore because it was planned as a monthly kind of, it was going to be Goosebumps for grown-ups.
So hold that thought, Steve. We'll get to it. We'll get to it, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. There is one other piece of business we got to do every time we have somebody on the show. You know what we got to do?
Uh-oh. Are we going to do the Classic 5?
Of course we are.
Awesome.
All right, so for people who don't know, the Classic 5 is a card game that we have here on Monster Kid Radio. I've got a deck of cards here. Each one of these cards is a this or that, yes or no style question. What's your favorite monster movie? That sort of thing. There are no wrong answers. Some people call it a game. Some people call it an icebreaker. I call it the Classic 5. Steve, are you ready to play the game?
I am ready to give it a shot.
All right, here we go, right off the top of the deck. Now, there are different types of cards. There's a core deck, a universal deck, a hammer deck, and a Monster Bash exclusive deck. I am still working on the official Kaiju and Deep Cut deck. Those are coming, but for now, we're going to use what I've got here in my hand, which is a universal card. Steve, what was the most recent Universal monster movie that you've watched?
Ooh, that's a good question. What is the most recent Universal monster movie that I've watched? I definitely saw Secret of the Blue Room not too long ago, but I'm sure I've seen something else since The Wolfman. It was The Wolfman. Almost certainly The Wolfman, which is one of my favorites, too.
Oh, it's one of the best.
Totally one of the best. It's top 2 or 3, I think.
Second card. I'm going to pull this from the in-production second core deck. So these are questions that not even Steve has, even though he owns a copy of the Classic 5. Who is your favorite Classic Scream Queen?
Classic Scream Queen. Are we counting Barbara Steele?
It's up to you.
It's Barbara Steele.
Really? Above Fay Wray and Evelyn Ankers?
Above Fay Wray and Evelyn Ankers.
Wow.
I just think Barbara got... And those were my other 2 choices. I just think Barbara actually got deeper into the whole monster mythos than the other 2. The other 2 weren't monsters.
Okay.
As much as I like them, and maybe discounting one performance or so for each of them, which, maybe we could count Evelyn Ankers, who I think is pronounced Evelyn Ankers, but that's all right.
It's actually Evelyn. It's actually Evelyn.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Even checked with Gregory William Mank on this one. And
did he actually know her?
He spoke with family, and when I asked him about Evelyn Ankers, he was quite impressed that I actually had it right.
Well, there you go. Because then the classic trailers have gotten it wrong.
I know, right?
I'm sure they say Evelyn Ankers. In fact, my mother-in-law is named Evelyn.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I talked to Gregory about that too. I was like, and he's like, yeah, I know. So.
So she said Evelyn. That's cool. I'll try to keep that in mind. Anyway, we could argue that in Weird Woman she's a monster, but in a classic sense, Barbara Steele is the one of those 3 that actually played monsters and played them regularly and has, a really solid body of work playing monsters. So she's my classic Scream Queen.
Okay. And didn't Evelyn play a Frankenstein at one point?
Yeah, I think she did, but the scientist, not the monster.
Right.
So...
Well, I would have said Frankenstein's monster, Steve. Come on now.
Right. So.
No worries. Well, speaking of Frankenstein, it's going to come up in our third card, which is from our Hammer expansion. Steve, what do you prefer? Peter Cushing as Van Helsing or Peter Cushing as Frankenstein?
Oh my God, I hate this question. I've heard other people get this question before. I'm going to go with Baron Frankenstein. And I love his Van Helsing. I love it a lot. But he played Baron Frankenstein more. And honestly, it's him as Baron Frankenstein that holds a lot of those movies together. If you ask me which series I like better, I like the Dracula Hammer series better. Because some of the monsters in the Frankenstein series aren't really monsters. But you do have Baron Frankenstein, who connects them all. So it's really about him, and therefore that's why I'm going with Baron Frankenstein.
Okay. All right. Well, that was card 3. Card 4 from the core deck. What is your favorite Ed Wood film?
Ooh, that's tough. It's either Plan 9 or Bride of the Monster. I mean, I'd love to go really obscure and get some of these kind of crazy nudie cuties that Ed Wood did, but honestly, I don't remember what any of them are, and I've only seen like one. So, in terms of actually being a decent film, I think I'm going to go with Bride of the Monster. It's got a real Bela performance in it, and aside from the insane cheapness of it, there are some actual good monster movie moments in that one, whereas Plan 9 is a wonderful, goofy, worst movie of all time kind of goofy movie. I'm going to go Bride of the Monster for Ed Wood.
I know Ed Wood didn't intentionally go and say, hey, I'm going to make a bad movie. You know, I know he tried his best to make the best movies he possibly could. And I think in terms of quote-unquote real movie making, he probably succeeded most with Bride of the Monster.
Right.
Although, having seen Night of the Ghouls recently, I'm kind of impressed by that one, too. But I have a very, very, very soft spot for Plan 9 from Outer Space, and that's a bit of foreshadowing, listeners. Stay tuned, because something's coming for that. Anyway, final card, final question, going back to the new deck that I'm working on. Steve, if you could dress up as a classic monster for Halloween, who would it be?
Oh, I've dressed up as... Does Barnabas Collins count?
Hey, if it's classic to you.
Barnabas Collins is actually something that I have enough stuff to dress up as. But I've played Dracula or a vampire like Dracula on more Halloweens than I can count. So it's always one of those two. I had in this last year, this is an interesting note. The Target last year had a lot of Universal Monster stuff. And one of the Universal Monster things I ended up was getting a full head Creature from the Black Lagoon mask. So I got it home. I was very excited, and I tried it on, and I couldn't see anything out of it. I couldn't even see enough out of it to actually get a decent selfie picture with me wearing the thing. And then I started to get really claustrophobic, too, because it's like there's eye holes, but there's not a nose hole. There's not really much of a mouth. It's like it was just stifling. I'm going to stick with vampires. So if you want a specific vampire, it's either Dracula or Barnabas Collins.
Hey, vampires work. Vampires work just fine. And there's nothing wrong with Barnabas. Nothing wrong at all.
Yeah, if I could be a monster, I'd be the creature. Because super strong, swims underwater, awesome. But, yeah, dressing up as a vampire.
Okay, there you go. Well, that was the Classic 5. Steve, how do you feel?
I feel classified.
Wait, okay.
I feel good. You hit me with a couple that out of a new deck, so that's kind of cool. It's like, oh, never heard these before. Haven't had time to think about it.
You're my beta tester, is basically. I've been trying to pull out some of the newer questions because I know some people have the deck now, and I still want to keep them guessing. So I know I say this every time, listeners, but there is a way for you to have your own copy of the Classic 5, and I promise this time I'll remember to say something about it at the end of the show. So let's go ahead and talk about the Rally Awards. Like I said, this is 1934, 44, and 54. Steve, do you have the ballot?
I have a ballot in front of me.
Excellent.
So I don't know the winners. We should say that.
Yes, you don't know the winners. I do.
And it's been long enough ago that I'm not even going to remember a lot of the nominees without this ballot. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm, kind of getting a little older, but there's kind of a joy in doing this. Every time I do it, it's like, oh, look, new. Oh, look, new. It's like the peekaboo game with little kids or dogs or something like that. You hide it from them, and they forget they've seen it. And now it's like, oh, yeah, that's cool. I really like the 1934 Best Actor category. It's really good.
Yeah, so we're going to start with 1934. And just so listeners know how the ballot broke down, we typically had up to 5 nominees. And I think this time around we did have 5 in each category. But there was always a place for people to write in an other. If we missed something or there's something that you thought needed to be on the ballot, you can always fill that in.
Yeah, and I might have even done that this year on something.
Okay.
So 54 was just, what a brutal year that
was.
The
50s and 54 made up for what happened in 53.
Wasn't it 52 that was the real problem?
One of them, yeah.
One of those two. There was that terrible dead year. I think it was 52. Maybe it was 50. I don't know. Anyway, it's not this year.
Check the archives. So the way we did it when we announced the ballot is I read the ballot and the nominees, and Steve reacted to them. This time around, I'm going to have Steve read the ballot, and then I'll announce the winner.
Awesome. 1934 Best Actor. We have Jack Holt from Black Moon. We have Boris Karloff as Karloff in The Black Cat. Remember, Boris was so famous he only had one name at that point. Ed Lowry from House of Mystery. We have Bela Lugosi from The Black Cat. And the great Frederick March, Death Takes a Holiday. And the winner of the rally is...
Who do you think, Steve? Who are you pulling for?
I went for Bela Lugosi, and the reason is I think that The Black Cat is one of his best performances in terms of he's playing a mostly good guy, but a good guy who has serious flaws. And the other obvious choice is Karloff, because this is Black Cat is their best film, and they're both astonishing in it. But there were other categories to vote for Boris in, so I went with Bela. How did he do? Who turned out on top here?
Well, Steve would have lost the office pool on that one. Bela came in second.
Of course he did.
The person who won, yeah, of course. The person who won was Karloff.
Oh, what a
his
shock.
role for his role in The Black Cat at 46.2% of the vote.
Ooh.
Bela came in at 41.5%. So pretty darn close, but once again, Karloff edged over him.
So hey, you Bela Lugosi fans that didn't vote, it's your fault.
well, okay. All right, let's roll into Best Actress, Steve.
All right, rolling into the Best Actress here. We have Mary Foy for House of Mystery. We have Mary Morris for Double Door, which I still have not managed to watch, though I think I have a copy now. We have Marta Roel from El Fantasma del Convento, The Phantom of the Convent. We have Mae Stewart from Beast of Borneo. And we have Fay Wray from Black Moon. And I'm going to be really surprised if Fay Wray doesn't win this.
Oh, she did. She did. She came away, just nailed it. She came away with almost 80% of the vote.
And justly so. I mean, she's a wonderful actress, and we are in the prime of Fay Wray's monster career here. And I think this might have been one of those years where the only reason she's not on the ballot 3 times in this category is because I think after last time we said you can't be on the ballot more than once in your category.
Yeah, he really tried to avoid that this time.
Congratulations to Ms. Ray. She was awesome right up to the end of her life. What a great lady.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Best Director, 1934.
Yeah, let's hit it.
Fernando de Fuentes, El Fantasma del Convento, The Phantom of the Convent. We got Brian Desmond Hurst for The Telltale Heart. We have Michael Leeson for Death Takes a Holiday. We have Roy William Neal for Black Moon. And we have the great Edgar G. Ulmer for The Black Cat. And again, with The Black Cat being such a strong movie, I'm going to be shocked if Ulmer does not win this.
Oh, he did, certainly. At 82.8% of the vote, Edgar G. Ulmer nailed it. And this is one of the best films of the 30s. I mean, just flat out. Not just horror films, not just genre films, just one of the best films. Ulmer had an amazing eye and knew how to, and unfortunately it was also a wandering eye, but he had an amazing eye and knew how to use it. And it's such a shame that he got blacklisted the way that he did and ended up working in lower and lower prestige films towards the end of his career. But this one, just amazing.
It's such a shame that he had that career stumble later in life. But this one, he is at the height of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
Boris and Bela are at the height of their powers. And that gives us, in my opinion, the greatest Boris Bela movie of all time. And one of the great horror movies of all time, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to Best Movie. Are we seeing a trend here?
Well, let's find out.
We will see. For Best Movie, the nominees for 1934 are The Black Cat, Black Moon, Death Takes a Holiday, El Fantasma del Convento, The Phantom of the Convent, and The Telltale Heart, or other. There is always that other thing, but I don't think we've seen an other win anything yet.
No,
So
we haven't even seen an other turn up on the ballots yet.
Pardon me if I don't mention it much.
No, it hasn't come up at all here. But yeah, you're right. The winner was The Black Cat. Almost 90% of the vote came in for The Black Cat. Solid film.
Seriously, we don't want to oversell any of the films that we love to people, but
yes, we do.
It's amazing. It is dark and twisted, and it's still got those little grace notes from the 30s that are, there's a little bit of semi-comedy and this kind of stuff, but this movie has text and it has subtext, and they're both kind of screaming at you. It's, wow, great performances all around too. It's unique.
It is. And
I don't think they would have made it even a year later.
No.
And I'm not even entirely sure they'd remake it today, because it's got more than a bit of an edge to it.
It would lose something. If they tried to do something similar to that now, it would lose a lot, because they'd probably go, just because of how things are these days in horror in Hollywood, it'd be over the top gore. We'd see the skinning,
right.
All that. So
right, yeah. And there would be other things that they would probably play up, and I don't know, they'd either cut them up or they'd screw them up, and it's just, something would go wrong. If this was perfect time, perfect place.
Yep.
So that brings us to the last category in 1934.
Correct.
Last category is Best Monster. We saved the best for last. And the nominees are the crazed orangutan from Beast of Borneo. Hjalmar Polzig, Boris Karloff in The Black Cat. Death from Death Takes a Holiday. The Killer Ape from House of Mystery. And Don Maxwell, the Maniac from The Maniac. And the winner is...
So before I announce the winner, I want to just acknowledge that the crazed orangutan actually got 1 vote.
Awesome.
Which I didn't expect, because some of these categories, there are some nominees who didn't get any votes at all. But the orangutan actually got a vote in this one.
So
yeah. The winner is Karloff's character, Polzig.
Yeah, because he is a monster. He is one of the biggest monsters in all of horror cinema. He is... No, again... Sorry, we don't want to oversell it. Your mileage
we do.
Your mileage may vary, but I think 9 out of 10 Monster Kids would agree that this is a great film, and the characters are amazing. And
hey, it took all but one of the categories in 1934.
Which one didn't it take? Oh, the best actress.
Actress.
Yeah, because there's... Well, okay, we won't give too much of that away.
Yeah.
There were reasons that...
There are reasons.
There are reasons.
Yes.
But we'll forgo those and move on to 1944.
Before we dive into 44, though, I know I stopped you earlier. I want to hear more about Frost Harrow, because I'm familiar with a lot of your work, Steve, but I feel like the Frost Harrow stuff, in the time that I've known you, it's always been something that you've done before, not something that you were actively doing. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but when was the last time you did something with Frost Harrow?
I actually, every year for the last 4 or 5 years, at Halloween time, I've released a new short Frost Harrow series.
That I'm just apparently not paying attention.
Yes. So, and they're all on my site, and they're all kind of interwoven in the times, mostly the times before the actual series takes place. And this is a series that, back at the start of my career as a novelist, more than 20 years ago, I came up with this idea. Goosebumps was really big at the time. A lot of people were reading fiction on the trains. I need to stress this is before there were e-readers, which was a critical error on my part. I came up with this idea that it would be a really cool idea to do an adult horror series that would come out every month. And it would be a short book, a book the size of a little bigger than a Goosebumps, like a Hardy Boys sized book. It would be self-contained every month, but also have a serialized story that would run for the course of at least 3 years, was my plan at the time. And as I had the time to work on it, between other projects, I actually wrote 6 of these little novels. And 2 of them are actually a connected novel. So I wrote them, and I talked to my then agent, who was a fairly famous, well-known agent, and he got very excited about it, and I sent him manuscripts for all of them, and then he completely screwed up the sale. So the sale did not happen. So they sat around for a while, but then just a couple of years later, right around 1999, the Rocket ebook came out. It was the first ebook reader. And I thought, okay, these would be a perfect ebook kind of thing. So I put them online with a site. Well, maybe it was even before the Rocket ebook reader. There was a site called fatbrain.com that was selling books online before there were really ebooks online. I had them up there for a little while. They didn't sell much of anything, but then that folded and went away. And then I got involved in other things. So basically, I had this whole long story plotted out for these in monthly installments. Had finished the first 6 months worth, and they just sat there. But I don't know, 10 years passed, and we got to the point where ebooks were really starting to be a thing. And I thought, maybe I should release these for this. But it was before it became really easy to do so. And I thought, well, okay, yeah, but that was, it was from almost 10 years ago now. So I'm a better writer now than I was then. I should rewrite them. And so I started doing that. And then other things would come along and I would get stalled out. And then I would start rewriting it again. I think I rewrote the first book 3 different times completely. And something always stalled me out. Eventually, the thing that really made it difficult was these books were written at the end of the last century. So they were all kind of pre-digital revolution in a sense. People had cell phones, but they were the kind of brick cell phones. People had computers, but they weren't the kind of super internet computers that we have now. And all that technology needed to be updated if I was to keep it a modern horror story, because the idea was it was contemporary to when I was writing it. And I got trapped in the idea that I had to rewrite it into the present. More recently, I've come to believe that I was just wasting my time rewriting something I'd already done, and done fairly well, because this is one of my wife's favorite things that I've ever written is this series. For all its flaws in terms of technical flaws in terms of writing, it's still going to be better than a lot of stuff that sells a lot on Amazon from less experienced authors. But it wasn't up to my standards. But I got very wrapped up in trying to fix all that. And really what I should have done, and what I'm thinking I'm going to do now, is just give them a light polish to remove anything that's just egregious, and maybe correct a few small things that I just can't live without. But to put them out and let them be the story that happened in 1996, that happened before the turn of the last century, because one of the plots was to actually have a thing going on at the millennium. So my thought now is that I'm going to actually release these as they originally were. I may release at some point in a special edition the 2 or 3 rewritten versions of the first story, so that people can see how all that progressed, if people even care about that kind of thing. But my thought is, if I release them as they were, then maybe I can actually pick up the story and continue it and get to at least a couple of key plot points, because there was kind of a climax. I had 3 years more or less plotted out, and there was kind of a climax at the end of every year. And I won't be doing 12 books every year again. I'll be trying to kind of hit the key story point books. I'll be skipping the ones that were maybe less essential to the plot or focused on characters that weren't the major characters. That's kind of the thought right now. And especially if people want to see this, they can go to the Patreon, CushingHorrors.com, and encourage me to do that and to release those as my next project after Dr. Cushing.
So these were contemporary to the time that you originally started writing them?
Yes, they were modern Gothic horror novels.
Okay, and they had a very heavy Dark Shadows influence, is that
in the
right?
tradition of Dark Shadows, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so
Yeah,
just
if
so
you
people kind of
imagine
know.
Goosebumps for grown-ups or Dark Shadows is written by Stephen King.
Okay.
That was kind of that was what I was shooting for. Ironically, right, or not ironically, or whatever is the word for when someone else has the same idea you do and does really well with it, and you can't get yours off the ground. This all happened right at the same time, literally at the same time that Stephen King released his Green Mile as a serialized book.
Okay.
It's like, that was my idea. How dare he?
Gotcha.
But that's just one of those things. And if I'd been a little swifter, I would have released them right at the start of the ebook revolution, and people would have them all now and be demanding more, rather than having me talk vaguely about them for at least the last 10 years that I've thought, this next year is going to be the year. Maybe 2019 is going to be the year, especially if people really want to see this. So Cushing Horrors is set in the 1930s. Well, between the 20s and the 40s, sometime vague between those two times. And the Frost Harrow series is set just before the millennium. And there you go.
I now know more about Frost Harrow than I ever did before. And how long have I known you?
A long time now.
Yeah.
10 years? More than 10 years? I don't know. I haven't been keeping track.
Very cool. Let's go ahead and move into the 40s.
1944.
There we go.
So we're starting, as always, with Best Actor.
What do we got?
We have Lon Chaney Jr. for Weird Woman. We have Laird Krieger for The Lodger. We have Boris Karloff as Dr. Niemann in The House of Frankenstein. It is Niemann, right?
Niemann, yes.
Dr. Niemann. We have Bela Lugosi as Armand Tesla in Return of the Vampire. And we have Ray Milland in The Uninvited. Now, I want to say this is one of the strongest
Yes.
cast fields that we've ever had in one of the Rally Awards. I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, I could vote for every one of these guys.
Oh, they're all solid. All solid. And, I mentioned Gregory William Mank earlier. He just put out a book about Laird Cregar, and I didn't know anything about this guy. I need to read that book. It's on my wish list.
I didn't either until I got there's a Fox horror, quote unquote, collection that has his 2 seminal films in it. That until I watched them, I was like, who is this guy? And after I watched the first one, I was like, oh my God, this guy was amazing.
He was fantastic. And in The Lodger, he's great. Now, he wasn't great enough to win, unfortunately. And this time around, our boy beat out Karloff. Bela Lugosi wins for Return of the Vampire.
Truth be told, I am pretty sure I voted for Bela because I think this is one of his finest roles.
Oh, it's fantastic. Return of the Vampire is a solid film anyway. And again, I know Steve's going to say we don't want to oversell anything, but yeah, I can't oversell Return of the Vampire. It's such a solid film.
And there was one of our friends, I don't remember who it was, that was saying recently they didn't think it was such a great film. And I don't remember who that was, but I have to respectfully disagree with them. I mean, yeah, it's got some of the flaws that any films from the 30s and 40s have, maybe. But it's got Bela as a vampire. It's got a werewolf in it. It has the most amazing female character maybe from the 40s period in it.
It's a solid film. It's a sequel to Dracula, basically. I mean, it really is. Everything but name only.
But name.
It is so good. And it puts it in a World War II setting, which I adore. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Right.
So
So it's contemporary to the time, and it's really well done and a lot of fun and a great Bela performance. So I'm totally glad he won.
Indeed.
Best Actress.
Best Actress. Here we go.
The now correctly pronounced Evelyn Ankers, despite what the trailer says. In Weird Woman, we have Anne Gwynn from The House of Frankenstein. We have Ruth Hussey from The Uninvited. We have Frida Inescort from Return of the Vampire, the self-mentioned awesome character. And we have Nina Foch from Cry of the Werewolf. Again, this is a very, very strong category here.
We were talking about how 54 is tough, man. 44 had some really solid performances, too. Frida won. Frida Inescort won for Return of the Vampire.
Awesome. I wasn't sure she would. I wasn't sure enough people had seen this film.
Now, Evelyn came in second, but Frida came in first. She pulled in the award for Return of the Vampire.
Which just makes it such a shame that they did not do more films with that character.
Oh, man.
Because she, honestly, we could have seen a whole kind of monster series with her as the Van Helsing character, because that's basically what she is.
Basically.
And I know when we saw that at the Monster Bash 2 years ago on the big screen, one of the questions I had for the guy that was talking about it, who you're going to remind me his name?
Frank Dell'Ostrito.
One of the questions I had asked was, do you think that one of the reasons that this character is a woman in this was because they were trying to differentiate it from Frankenstein? He didn't know, but I'm pretty convinced that in the original draft, this character was just Van Helsing. And when they said, Universal's going to sue us, what can we do differently? Suddenly, she became a woman. It's like, well, that's clearly not Van Helsing. It's a woman. Look.
Right? Yeah.
So for whatever reason, but it's a great character, and Universal, if you're, it's not theirs. I was going to say Universal, if you're listening, I'll write a whole series, but it's not theirs. It's Columbia, and I don't even know who owns Columbia anymore.
Well, and even if who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe it's public domain by now. I
doubt that, but yeah.
No, but the character might be. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on who owns the script. So anyway. Let's move on to Best Director.
We have Lewis Allen for The Uninvited. We have Earl C. Kenton, House of Frankenstein. We have Lou Anders for Return of the Vampire. We have Reginald Le Borg for Weird Woman. And we have the great Robert Wise for Curse of the Cat People, the sequel to Cat People.
Mm-hmm. which just came out on Blu-ray earlier this year, and it looks amazing.
And the winner is
Robert Wise.
Oh,
yeah,
it's a good choice. He's a great director. Can't argue with it.
Solid choice.
I probably voted for Lou Anders because I like Return of the Vampire that much.
And it's kind of nice to see Return of the Vampire not blow it out. I mean, it's a great film, but sometimes I do wonder, and I worry sometimes that when we have a movie like The Black Cat and it blows everything out but one, if people are just like, oh, okay, you know. So I'm happy to see some variety.
I agree. And we've got Best Movie coming up here, and there may be some surprises here, too. We're just going to have to see.
Here we go. What do we got?
For Best Movie, we have The Curse of the Cat People, House of Frankenstein, The Lodger, The Uninvited, and Weird Woman. And we'll notice that Return of the Vampire is not in that list.
But somebody did put it in as their other vote. It was only one. It wasn't enough to take it, but it did get some representation. The winner, however, has not won anything yet. House of Frankenstein.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Among those 5, I probably would have voted for The Uninvited because it's a fabulous film.
So I would have gone Weird Woman just because that's one of my absolute favorites. But I'm not picking the winners. The listeners are.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. We are here to service your wishes. And last and most importantly, of course.
Within reason.
In terms of monster movies, we're awards. You know, I guess this is the internet age. You have to really be more specific.
All right, best monster.
The best monster of 1944 is Frankenstein's monsters, played by Glenn Strange from House of Frankenstein. The Wolfman, played by Lon Chaney Jr. in The House of Frankenstein. Karis is also played by Lon Chaney Jr. in The Mummy's Ghosts. We have the spirits, who don't even have a picture because they're ghosts, in The Uninvited. And we have Armand Tesla, as played by Bela Lugosi in Return of the Vampire.
So just for a point of clarification, Karis actually ended up on the ballot because he was in 2 movies this year, The Mummy's Ghost and The Mummy's Curse.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. The Mummy's Ghost and
That's
The
right,
Mummy's
yeah.
Curse.
Yeah,
So-
Universal was pumping those mummy movies out.
And they're all kind of almost the same, but all have their unique joys, which is why
Yes,
we
we
love
do
them.
so much. One of these days, Steve, you and I are going to pick up the rest of the mummy movies we haven't talked about yet here on the show.
Absolutely. I think we've got, 2 to go, maybe? It's not these 2, is it?
I'd have to double check.
I love these films, but I always confuse their titles.
Ghost, Curse, Hand, Tomb, Library Book, I don't know. The winner this year was Armand Tesla, Return of the Vampire.
Bela's fabulous as Armand Tesla, even though
Yes, he is.
we have the perennial favorite Lon Chaney Wolfman there. And, you know, anytime that comes up, it's hard not to vote for Chaney because it's his key role and he's pretty fabulous. He's so good in it that attempts to redo Wolfman have never kind of worked because he's not there. So
I agree with you 100% there. And I know some people like the Benicio del Toro performance, but for me, Lon Chaney is the Wolfman. And what I really respect the most about what Lon Chaney does is that he played the Wolfman through all the films for Universal. And even at the end, he was still giving it his all.
Yep.
I mean, you can tell in the Mummy movies, he's just kind of a guy walking around. You can tell with Karloff's performance as Frankenstein's monster, he's kind of over it about halfway through Son of Frankenstein. But Chaney always did it. He always put his all into it. And that's kind of because he was Talbot in some ways.
Right.
And it's amazing.
yeah, and the funny thing is that even came across in Jeff Roven's Return of the Wolfman.
Yes.
You know, he really, congrats to Jeff Roven for that. He really nailed that Talbot emotional arc thing, that tortured soul inside without overplaying it. I mean, one of the, not to digress too much, but one of the reasons that I wasn't fond of the Del Toro remake, despite great makeup work by Rick Baker and company, was that he went from dark to dark. And the thing with Talbot is he has to go from light to dark. Del Toro's got Talbot starts as kind of depressed and tortured over the death of his brother, and then becomes depressed and tortured over the fact that he's a wolfman, as opposed to Talbot, who is tortured because he's the wolfman, but started out as a light soul who'd fallen there, and you could still see him reaching to get back what he had lost throughout every performance he made of the Wolfman.
Okay, this time I'm going to cut in because I got a voicemail from Steve Turek, who, longtime friend of the show. He was backing me up over at Monster Bash, helped me with the top 100 favorite monster movie lists that we did, and he and I kind of had a thing going back and forth regarding who was going to take 1954. Well, he called in with some thoughts before he found out who won. We'll play that, and then we'll get back to the announcement with Steve Sullivan and I.
Hi, Derek. This is Steve Turk. I just wanted to say that the Wasp Woman last episode was really well done. You always do a great job. I don't know how you pull it off, but every episode is always right up there in excellence. I mean, I think you're just hitting your stride. Maybe it's the nose surgery. You're able to breathe better now. I don't know. But whatever it is, you're doing wonderful. I know you said on that thing you're supposed to do the Rally Awards with this episode that's coming out. And I wanted to give my feedback to that episode prior to knowing any of the results. And basically, the 1954 is the year I care about. I know it's the year you care about. The Battle of the Titans, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Godzilla or Gojira, and of course we have them. And as we know from our monster movie list, they were all three in the top 10, and it was definitely going to be a battle of the Titans. Now, not knowing the results, I'll give you feedback 3 different ways you can choose to air these any which way you want, or you can air all 3, just make me sound like a total fool. It's up to you. Feedback number 1, the outcome that it should be, Gojira wins. He gets redemption from not beating the Creature from the Black Lagoon in the top 100 movie list, finishing 4th to its 3rd, and we finally had everything right in the universe. All hail Godzilla. Possible feedback 2, Creature somehow wins for a second time in a row. I believe there's a bias in the Monster Kid Radio because of its always showing support of everything Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think that leads people to have a more likely to vote for Creature from the Black Lagoon instead of Godzilla. I also think we might have checked your podcast for possible subliminal messages that are leading people to vote for Creature from the Black Lagoon. I found myself almost voting for Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I think it's because that you are sending out subliminal messages and are having effect on people. Feedback possible number 3, them wins. What the hell's happening in the universe? I love that movie, but how in the world could that movie sneak in and beat Godzilla and Creature from the Black Lagoon? I don't know what in the world's going on anymore. The universe is going up topsy-turvy, but I can say, them, you were an excellent film, and I do enjoy you. And that's just the feedback I have to give for you, Derek.
Let's dive into the 50s and wrap this thing up and bring it home. 1954.
1954, and if this wasn't a tough year for you, you weren't paying attention.
Wow. Best actor. And I've got something coming. Here we go.
Best actor. Richard Carlson, the hero from Creature from the Black Lagoon. Lee J. Cobb from Gorilla at Large. James Mason in a great performance as Captain Nemo in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We have Vincent Price as the titular Mad Magician. And we have one of my favorite roles of all times. We have James Whitmore for Them. And the winner is...
We actually had a write-in as well.
Ooh.
We had 2 people write this one in. He's from Gojira, Akihito Harada.
There you go. That's close enough.
Yeah, fair enough. So we actually had a tie for Best Actor.
Ooh!
So we have 2 people taking home the rally this year for 1954's Best Actor. We have Vincent Price from The Mad Magician and James Mason from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Wow!
They both got 30.8% of the vote.
Wow.
Right?
I probably voted for Mason. I don't remember because I love a lot of these performances, and not enough is said probably about how great a film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is. It's amazing. And Price is great in The Mad Magician, even though there's at least one point where I think they dubbed his voice, and I think they should have not dubbed his voice. I think they should have dubbed the other guy's voice. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So, great. Good. Well, good for them. That's surprising. Maybe one of the first ties we've had?
I don't remember, but I am a little surprised. I'm a little shocked that Vincent Price didn't take it home just because he's Price. So very cool. Very cool to have James Mason on there as well.
Well, I thought that Richard Carlson might have gotten all your creature love.
You know, he only got 9
walked
votes.
away with.
He only got 9 votes.
Well,
yeah.
He's a square-jawed hero. No one ever said he was the greatest actor in the world, but James Mason and Vincent Price, they could make a pretty good run at greatest actor in the world, I think.
All right, let's kick off Best Actress. Who do we got?
Julie Adams as Julia Adams from Creature from the Black Lagoon. Amazing performance.
I need hold on. I need a moment. Hold on. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, she's a great character, great performance. Anne Bancroft from Gorilla at Large. We have Ava Gabor, who, boy, do you want her to get killed by the Mad Magician. We have Momoko Kochi from Gojira, Godzilla 1954. And we have the amazing Joan Weldon, the scientist woman from Them, who has some of the best lines ever in male-female interaction in science fiction movies from the 50s. I love this character. Them was on the other day. That's not a Universal film, is it? No, it's Warner Brothers. And I watched it again for the scene where she dresses down the tough military guys about how she doesn't have time to teach them entomology before she goes down into the nest of the giant ants with them. Anyway, we have Joan Weldon as well. This is a very strong category.
Probably the only time we'll ever mention Anne Bancroft seriously on Monster Kid Radio. She didn't win. The winner was my 1950s girlfriend, who almost got half of the votes, Julie Adams.
I can't be sad by that. Even though I think, and I'm going to lose your friendship here, I think I voted for Joan Weldon because I love...
No, you're allowed to be wrong. It's okay.
I love that character that much. And as much as I love the Julie Adams character in Creature, I kind of feel like she loses her agency in the second half of the film. And Joan Weldon is there in the final scene of Them still being the tough scientist girl.
So Joan Weldon actually came in third. Second was Momoko.
Oh, and she's terrific.
From Gojira. Yeah.
She's terrific.
All right, let's kick off Best Director. Another strong category.
Director, and you're not kidding. We have the great Jack Arnold from Creature from the Black Lagoon. We have John Bram from The Mad Magician. We have Richard Carlson directing Riders to the Stars.
With Herbert L. Strock as well. Yeah, uncredited.
We have Gordon Douglas for Them. And we have Ishiro Honda for Gojira. Honest to God, I don't remember how I voted in this one. There are 3 of these that I would take my top vote any other year without a lot of competition. Who did the listeners to Monster Kid Radio go
with
for?
Almost 2/3 of the vote coming in, Ishiro Honda took it for Best Director.
Yeah, well, it's, he's one of the great directors of all time.
He really is. Now, I want to say something about Richard Carlson as director for Riders to the Stars, and I think I mentioned this when we announced the ballot to begin with. That was totally the producer of Monster Kid Radio exerting his will on the nominees because I love that movie. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Moving on.
It's actually a really good movie, and I think that is it OSI, I think?
Yes, the Office of Scientific Investigation.
They're the kind of movies I wouldn't have appreciated as much as a kid, but now as an adult, I can really appreciate the try that they were making to do pretty serious science fiction back in the era of giant bugs and giant monsters, which are completely represented here on this list by some of the greatest films of all time. Creature from the Black Lagoon, Them, and Gojira, Godzilla. I mean, they're probably all on my top 10 list. They're amazing films.
They're solid films. And about Gojira, so I think it was last year we opened it up to the listeners to have them decide how we're going to handle some of the Japanese releases, because Gojira was released in 54, but in 55 or 56 that Godzilla King of the Monsters came out here. They are substantially different in terms of what they're doing and the story itself. So you will see Godzilla King of the Monsters on the ballot more than likely as well. So you may see some of these names repeat, just it's a different film.
Right.
And we'll probably do the same thing with Varan the Unbelievable if it ends up on the ballot, because it's significantly different as well. Gamera, significantly different. So you might see that happen with some of these titles, some of these movies.
Yep, exactly. This one is Gojira, though. And that brings us to Best Movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Best Movie is Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I'm just going to cut you off there because that's what I believe. Best movie is Creature. No, go ahead.
Gog, which is an OSI picture, and not the one that was nominated earlier, but a fine 3D movie. And it has great killer robots in it and other cool stuff. Gojira, The Mad Magician, and the original giant bug movie, and still the best, Them. Whew. Man.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I said, there are literally three of my favorite monster movies that I will literally watch anytime they are on the television. I will stop and I will watch them, are in this category.
I'm really struggling here, Steve, and the reason is anybody who hung around me and Steve Turek at Monster Bash this year probably got to hear him and I bicker back and forth about Creature from the Black Lagoon and Godzilla. And he said that MKR has a very strong creature bias, and his favorite movie of all time is Godzilla, and he thinks Godzilla should win. And I was like, no, it's the Gillman, it's Creature. Apparently I'm not doing my job because Gojira won.
It's a great film. And
I could lie. I could just say, no, but I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to, this is all above board. Gojira took 60% of the vote.
Wow. That's strong showing. Not to wipe away your tears or anything, but Gojira has, I think, a more significant subtext than any of the other films here, as much as I love Them and the creature. And I do. Like I said, these three films, they're all in probably my top 10 for monster movies.
Sure.
Gojira has, not only is it a great monster movie, but it's also got the really strong anti-war, anti-nuclear sentiment that could only come out of a country that's been bombed with nuclear bombs. Thank God, the only one, hopefully the only one ever, but certainly the only one so far.
Well, and it's got a legacy. Creature's great. I love Creature, but it's far from the first rubber-suited monster movie from Universal.
Right.
Gojira is the first Daikaiju film.
Right.
It is it for Japan, for the rubber-suited thing that Japan was doing. It kicked it all off.
Without Gojira, we don't have Rodan, we don't have Varan, we don't have King Ghidorah, we don't have Mothra, we don't have War of the Gargantuas, we don't have Gamera, and the list is almost endless. And so, in that sense, too, in the sense of legacy, it has as much as I love the creature, it's one of my favorite films.
Agreed.
Gojira casts a much longer shadow. But then, we come to the best monster category. Best monster, the last category from 1954, the last category in the rallies for this season. Best monster. And if you thought you were getting off easy, you were wrong, because here we are again. We have, right at the top, the two that are probably head-to-head for this, the Gill Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. We have Godzilla from Gojira. We have the amazing, I think, Robert Mattie's giant squid from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I think Mattie was the guy that created the mechanics for that. We have the amazing practical effect giant ants from Them. Finally, we have the amazing mechanical robots from Gog. That'd be Gog and Magog for those of you keeping track. So this is the big one. This is the title fight. 1954.
And the big one won. Godzilla.
Well, you got to admit, in a fight, he would win.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to recount these ballots because I'm thinking half of these were like hanging chads and stuff, right? This can't be right. Clearly, Steve Turek hacked Google.
And I think again we can explain this perhaps somewhat by the fact that the Godzilla casts a long shadow. He is a franchise. He is, 30 odd movies and counting at this point. He is now an animated movie series because the US is doing their own movie series. Godzilla is Godzilla. And the creature, for better or worse, has not appeared in anything of significance after the creature walks among us. Even if you want to count Monster Squad, that's not really him. That's not our Gill Man. That is a
Hey,
Gill.
man.
It's
you
close.
are totally forgetting Uncle Gilbert from the Munsters. Come on.
Oh, you're right. There is that. And there's that Abbott and Costello appearance that I've never seen. But yes.
Well, that was before Creature happened, though. That was his first screen appearance, was the Abbott and Costello thing.
Really?
That's how they introduced him. Yeah.
Surprise.
So even before the film. Anyway, Godzilla wins. Steve Turek wins whatever non-existent bet there was between him and I. I hope you're happy, Steve.
You don't remember what the stakes were, Derek? He takes over
no.
Monster Kid Radio now.
Really?
He had a good run, but it's over, dude. No.
Whatever. Fine. He can have it. I'm going to take my ball and go home. You guys can do your own show from now on about Godzilla.
Sure, somebody is. So, well, Kyle is. Hey, Kyle.
I was going to say, there's the Kaiju cast. So. Which is one of the reasons why, honestly, I haven't done a lot of Kaiju films on Monster Kid Radio, because I know Kyle's kind of got that whole thing wrapped up and does an incredible job, and there's no way I can compete. But I do feel like I want to do some more Kaiju stuff on the show. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Stay tuned. We'll do some more Kaiju stuff down the line.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was the Rallies, 1954. Lots of ups, lots of downs, some surprises for me, some tears from me. And, it was a lot of fun. And we'll do this again next year for 1955. I'm not sure what we're looking at yet. I'd have to look at the monster categories or the monster films that came out that year. Should be fun.
Thanks for voting, everybody.
Steve, thanks for doing this again with us. Really appreciate having you on for all of this and to have you be part of the show, of course.
My great pleasure, as always. I'm hoping that sometime very soon we'll do a non-rally show where you and I will talk about either The Mummy or some other movies.
Oh, boy.
Looking forward to that.
I'm looking ahead at 55. We're in trouble.
Oh, yeah? What do we got?
Tarantula.
Ooh.
Quatermass Experiment.
Ooh.
Night of the Hunter.
Ooh.
This Island Earth.
Ooh.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
Saw them capture innocent people only to destroy. Father turned against son. People changed into strange, weird animals. A general of the army becomes a saboteur. Trusted police turned into arsonists. The boy's parents changed into killers. Invaders from Mars, weird, fantastic beings of a superintelligence, ruling a race of synthetic humans and pitting them against mankind's dream to conquer the universe.
Step on it. Search every tunnel. We gotta find Ronaldo and the kid. When the colonel gives the signal, get back here on the double.
C-3PO,
Loki,
Mace Windu,
Dr. Bruce Banner,
Captain Rex,
Venom,
Princess Leia,
Jean Grey,
Darth Maul,
Nick Fury,
Grand Moff Tarkin,
Captain America,
Lando Calrissian,
Cyclops.
What do all these characters have in common?
Well, 2 of them were played by Samuel L. Jackson.
A couple of them were played by Hammer Films veterans Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Come on, guys. You know this.
Well, of course we do, Jessica. Just like Mickey Mouse and Captain Jack Sparrow, they're all now Disney characters. Hello, I'm Tracy of the Disney Indiana podcast, and my co-host Scott and I enjoy talking about all aspects of the House of Mouse, and that includes their newest properties, Marvel and LucasArts.
We also talk about Disney resorts, the cruise line, theme parks, and whatever else Mickey has to offer.
Which includes movies, Imagineering, video games, and collectibles. You'll never know what we'll decide to talk about.
So check us out at www.disneyindiana.com or do a search for the Disney Indiana podcast on iTunes, because now we've got a lot more to talk about.
And don't forget about those other quote-unquote Disney characters like, well, Sully,
Fozzie Bear,
Buzz Lightyear,
Link Hogthrob,
Doug,
Janice,
Merida,
Pepe,
Bruce,
Ralph the dog,
Wally,
The Disney Indiana podcast. Even after 5 years, we're still miles away from the nearest Main Street, USA. We're not listed on the map, but you can join us at www.disneyindiana.com.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, it's alive!
A gigantic beast,
stalking the earth, crushing all before it.
In a cyclonic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
Raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Incredible titan of terror.
Wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame.
Jet planes cannot destroy it.
Bombs cannot kill it.
All modern weapons fail.
Is this the end of our civilization?
Can the scientists of the world find a way to stop this creature?
For the answer, see Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
You may wish to deny it, but your eyes tell you it's true.
A tale to stun the mind.
More fantastic than any ever written by Jules Verne.
More terrifying than any ever shown on the screen.
Awesome.
Incredible.
Unbelievable.
A story beyond your wildest dreams.
Dynamic violence.
Savage action.
Spectacular thrills.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Fantastic beyond comprehension.
Gripping beyond compare.
Astounding beyond belief.
The mightiest monster of them all.
See Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
So we haven't had her on the show for a couple of weeks because she's been busy. Brenda's back.
Yes. I just got back from Juneau, Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very pretty there.
Had a lot of people reach out to me saying, you know, they missed you and they support you.
Aww.
All sorts of nice stuff about you.
None of which you're going to put on the show.
I think maybe
I'm
one of the...
teasing. I'm teasing.
So Brenda was up in Alaska for a funeral, and we've missed having you here.
Thanks.
So,
I appreciate it.
Got a handful of emails. Thought maybe we'd dive into those, unless there's anything you want to talk about.
No.
Okay, fine.
All right. Hi, Derek.
Oh, I'm out of practice. Hi. Wow.
Hope you are continuing to feel better after your surgery. Of course, our conditions all improve as Halloween gets closer. Loved the latest show on the Wasp Woman with Tracy Morris. I did have a couple literary questions related to it that I hoped you or other monster kids might be able to shed some light on. One issue was, why turn poor Susan Cabot? Why turn poor Susan Cabot?
Cabot.
Oh.
It's Cabot.
Why turn Susan
hey.
into a giant wasp when, with the storyline, it might have been more logical for her to turn into a giant bee? Because I don't like bees.
You know,
just kidding. I don't like wasps either.
I didn't even think about this when I was pulled up this email for you. You really don't like bees.
Well, I don't like wasps even more.
Okay.
They're so mean.
Okay.
They're little flying jerks.
And we just lost all of our wasp listeners. Thank you so much. That vital, that important wasp demographic. Thanks.
Well, if you like wasps, I really think there's something wrong with you.
It's not whether or not I like them, whether or not they like Monster Kid Radio. I want the download numbers.
I know, but there's something wrong with them. You want a pure audience.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I took a look online, and it appears fantasist Ronald Dahl, who of course wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
So that's actually pronounced, and I'm not joking. Roald Dahl.
Why did I see Ronald?
You know, because it's spelled like that minus the N.
Yes.
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
He did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach. Actually wrote a James Bond movie.
Published the story Royal Jelly with a similar theme the same year, 1959. I kind of wonder if Corman caught wind of that and didn't want to be accused of plagiarism. As for Jeff Polier's discussion of Roddy McDowall's film It, yeah, I love that movie too. Do you think the name Roddy's character has, Arthur Pym, might have been a nod to Edgar Allan Poe's unfinished novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym? Of course, the Poe story influenced H.P. Lovecraft in writing At the Mountains of Madness, and that's where he got the sounds that the Shoggoths make. Tekelili?
You know, I've
Tekelili.
all these fancy words that you see in books.
That's not fancy.
Well, I mean, okay, maybe not fancy, but like made up words
Yeah.
or things like that. It's kind of hard to tell. I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways.
Okay. As we have agreed in previous discussions, all worthwhile contemporary Western culture has its roots in the works of the Three Musketeers of Weird Tales. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and Two Gun Bob, Robert E. Howard. Best wishes to you and Brenda. Hope you have a great time at the Cthulhu Tiki Festival in Portland. Alan Trump. Okay, how's your nose?
How's my nose? Actually, it hurts pretty badly today.
But that's abnormal.
Yeah. It's been getting better slowly.
So much better, yes.
I did something, I don't know, just it feels like a cut right now. I don't know why.
So stingy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not like a bee sting or a wasp sting, but, you know. I'm trying to keep it on track.
Nice
here,
segue. All right. Why a wasp instead of a bee?
I think wasp woman has that,
Oh.
you know, that alliterative feel. I don't know.
She couldn't be Bee Betty. Just doesn't have the same sting. All right. Even though. Do you think it had to do...
Laughing hurts. Stop making me laugh.
Do you think it had anything to do with not being accused of plagiarism, or you think it's alliteration?
Well, you know, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd be real curious to find out. And if anybody out there knows, I'd like to know what you know so that we can all know.
Don't you know?
Have we talked about my nose yet? What was that?
So Arthur Pym, do you think it's a nod to the unfinished novel about Gordon Pym?
Again, I don't know. However, I would not be surprised if nothing else, the name does have a very Edgar Allan Poean kind of feel. Maybe even a little Lovecraftian.
Well, that's what he's saying. This sort of inspired.
Just in the naming convention. So,
all right.
The Tikalele or whatever, that is from Lovecraft, but that also inspired something that you love. The little crab things in the Dark Tower.
Oh, Dada Chum, Dada Chuck. That's me making crab hands.
Yeah, that's the best podcast ever. Is Brenda sitting here making crab hands.
Dada Chum, Dada Chuck.
Alan is going to be on the show either next week or the week after that, depending on how something kind of falls into place for us. So,
okay, tell me about Cthulhu Tiki Festival.
So the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in Cthulhu Con is the first full weekend of October, which I believe this, I don't know, I have to look at the calendar, maybe 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, maybe 4th, 5th, 1, 2, anyway, it's it's the festival, and every year they try to have a theme now, and this year's theme is tiki themed, so there's going to be a lot of Innsmouth stuff. They have a Lovecraft-inspired musical selection that they're taking some classic Hawaiian-type songs that have a Lovecraftian lyrics. That have Lovecraftian lyrics kind of thrown in instead. The Kickstarter is now over.
Yes, and I'm so sorry that we couldn't afford to get you the package you wanted this year.
You know what? It is what it is.
I know you love going to that dress-up event.
The VIP thing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. And you wanted that tiki shirt so bad.
Yeah, with it being all tiki themed, a lot of the special things were like a tiki Cthulhu print in the style of like a camp or Hawaiian shirt, which, man, I really hope they have those for sale. That's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Yes, but it's just a few weeks away. Are we going to be able to afford it?
We'll see. We'll see, yeah.
Don't get your hopes up too high, honey.
I think you actually...
Oops.
Are you breaking stuff over there?
I'm making not great podcasting sounds.
I think you actually get paid the first day of the festival, so I'll be fine.
I guess rent doesn't have to come out of that. Who needs power?
So this year,
yes,
I think it's all but confirmed that Dominique Lamzes will be having a presentation about doing some crafty stuff, which will be really cool.
Yes.
And I don't think my panel was chosen, the one that I submitted. However, I will be a panelist on Chris McMillan's panel, the title of which is escaping me, but the gist is that it's going to be some forgotten weirdness, Lovecraftian movie type things.
You are doing a terrible job.
I really am, but my nose hurts. That's my excuse.
So I know there was a lot going on and you didn't have a chance to really come up with some good panel ideas. And I am sorry for that as well, even though I had very little to do with it.
Well, I'll tell the listeners, and maybe I'll turn it into an episode down the line. Why not? I mean, it's if they're not going to use it at the festival, I can use it on the show.
No. Well, I mean, if the Lovecraft Film Festival rejected it, is it really good enough?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Listen to that. So I forgot the name that I used as well.
Derek, Michael, what is going on?
I don't know. My blood sugar's messed up. And
it is,
I'm
isn't it? Yeah.
And,
yes.
My pelvis itches.
What?
Anyway.
What? Why are you even... You better put a monster growl over that. Not fair.
So my panel idea was looking at Lovecraftian elements or weird cosmic fiction elements that turn up or can be found in kaiju media. And the reason I pitched it this time around is because one of the special guests, whose name I do know, but I'm not going to try to pronounce because I don't speak Japanese and I'll butcher it and I'll never hear the end of it from Dominique, is a guy who was a showrunner on some of the Ultraman TV shows back in the 90s, I believe. And he wrote a whole bunch as well. And I am really excited that hopefully he'll be on a panel or two that I can kind of bring up some Ultraman stuff because I love my Ultraman.
You do, but remember, people are there for Lovecraft.
Well, I'll tailor it to...
Mm-hmm.
So this one monster you created in the season finale of Ultraman Gia or Tiga or whichever one it was looks just like what Cthulhu should have looked like. And what's the deal there, buddy? I don't know.
So I would suggest that you get Dominique to record the name of this person and you just slip it in as your voice.
I love that idea. Well, she's going to be at the festival too. So, maybe I'll
She has a panel.
She's at the presentation. So I'll bring her to that panel.
Yes.
And I'll just kind of like nudge her when it's time to say the name.
I meant in the show, honey.
Oh, you meant in the show. I thought you meant like record it for the actual festival. So I can just have it like on my iPod or something. And when it's time to say something to this man, just say, "Hello, mister," and then hit play.
That's way more complicated than what I was thinking.
It's a lot more complicated than just kind of nudging Dominique.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Which actually, this is kind of similar to the presentation that Alan did at the Lovecraft Film Festival years ago when he brought a bunch of movie posters that had Lovecraftian things going on, and he showed the trailer for the movie Yog, which is also known as Space Amoeba, which is a kaiju thing, and kind of said this was a Japanese Cthulhu film, and it really wasn't, but it was funny. Anyway, Alan's the man.
Alan Trump is.
Alan is the man, yes.
Okay. You keep pointing at this like you're trying to segue into this email.
I'm not. Okay.
Yeah, you keep doing this.
We're out of, what was that? Show the listeners what I just did with my hand.
This. We are out of sync.
Out of sync, out of practice. Let's do another email.
Okay.
That's all we're doing is emails.
Okay.
The one voicemail I played earlier in the show. So.
Been enjoying the show. The Famous Monsters of Filmland is a great tie-in. That was some amazing cover art, not to mention all of the Warren publications. I spent a lot of allowances on those mags. Glad to hear you were recovering from the nasal surgery. I went through it a year ago, and it was a drag. Questions about horror hosts.
Oh, okay. The reason that's in there is this was a conversation he and I had.
Yeah.
And he told me that he grew up watching particular horror hosts, and I asked him, are you watching any horror hosts now? And this was his response.
Okay. Mostly watching Svengoolie, Old Elvira, and MST3K these days. I do listen to Gilbert Gottfried's podcast. You never know who is going to show up. He is a huge fan of classic horror. He had Ron Chaney and Janet Ann Gallo on. Jim from Agent Octopus.
The Gilbert Gottfried thing came up because we were talking about other podcasts and such. And Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, I think it's called The Amazing Podcast. He does have a lot of Monster Kid guests come on. I've heard Sarah Karloff. I've heard Bela Lugosi Jr. on there. I don't listen to the show all the time, but if there's a guest that I'm really interested in, I will download the show and listen because I need more Sarah Karloff and Bela Lugosi and Ron Chaney in my life.
Yeah.
So he's from Agent Octopus.
Yes. Bottoms up.
Bottoms Up.
That's what it says.
Of the album.
Yes.
So the reason I included that in the email is to remind me to mention again that the song that we used to open the show and will be closing the show is from his band, Agent Octopus.
Okay, is it from the album Bottoms Up?
It is, and the song is called Black Pyramid, which took its name from the name of the classic pinball game from the 80s. And there's even, that's what that little picture is, just to kind of remind me to bring it up.
Oh, got it.
And I will mention it at the beginning of the show, obviously, and at the end, but the website, do you have it there?
Agent Octopus, there's no www.
No.
agentoctopus.wix site, wixsite.com/Agent Octopus.
Right. Again, there will be a link in the show notes. Go check out the music. I really dug it. Anyway, thanks for writing in. Thanks for reaching out to me about the music and offering us to...
Now,
offering to let us use the music.
Did Jim... He didn't really send an email. You copy, cut, and paste from...
Yeah, it wasn't like an actual, here's some feedback for the show, but still, I wanted to include it. And
yes.
Now, like I said, I really like Black Pyramid. It's one of my favorite songs that I've heard this year.
Perfect.
So I really dug it. Also, the Famous Monsters of Filmland, the segments that Ken's been sending in, I have really enjoyed. Just big shout out to Ken for doing that. When we do the episode on Monster of Piedras Blancas, which may be next week or the week after that, Ken's already sent in a segment for that.
Yay.
To talk about it. So totally love that. And speaking of segments, I actually just heard from somebody, I think today, about somebody doing a segment potentially on pre-code horror comics, which would be really cool.
What does pre-code mean?
So pre-code means the comics code. So if you go back and you look at a lot of the old horror comics from like the 30s and such, I think that's right. They're bloody, they're gruesome, there are severed heads on the covers. They're all pretty bad. And there was this huge push to censor these and say they were a bad influence and, they lead to juvenile delinquency and they're terrible, blah, blah, blah. So the comics industry got together and made their own comics code.
So they didn't have one imposed on them.
Exactly, much like how the motion picture industry did it.
Yes.
So these pre-code comics, though, are all really cool. And I don't know much about them other than I like looking at them and reading them. So to have somebody do a segment on that. So anybody who has an idea for a segment, drop me a line and we'll talk about maybe working something out.
Okay. Hey, Derek.
Hey.
Loving the podcast, and I hope you and Brenda are doing well. I've been behind for a while, and I'm finally catching up on your latest episodes. I'm probably late to the party, and they're all gone, but I thought I'd give it a shot. Do you have any more core decks of the Classic 5 still available for purchase? If so, I will buy one. Thanks, Eric M.
Yes, and the past couple of weeks I've actually been really bad about saying, and I'll tell you at the end of the show how you can order one, and then I always forget.
Oh.
I'm terrible about it. But yes, I do have some core decks left. They're $15 a piece. The Hammer expansion, the Universal expansion, and the Monster Batch expansion are $5 a piece. Shipping is $4 here in the States. So, yeah, I do have them. Now, I did reach out to Eric.
Yeah.
And told him we've got them.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Eric because he was one of the backers on the Kickstarter that I'm doing.
Ooh. I don't know what was happening. I was just excited to talk about your Kickstarter.
That's why I brought it up. So we are doing a Kickstarter campaign now to launch a premium Monster Kid Radio podcast called Plan 9 by 9. I've been blabbing about it on Facebook all over the place.
Yes.
It's going to be awesome. It's inspired by the Movies by Minute phenomenon.
Can I just say, by premium, you don't mean this is a good for all. If somebody buys into this and you've already met your goal, everybody can access it.
Yes. So when I say premium, I mean it's going to be a special thing. It's going to be a limited release because what we're doing is looking at Plan 9 from outer space, 9 minutes at a time, which means at minimum there will be 9 episodes. There will actually be a few more because we've hit
stretch goals.
2 stretch goals to have some bonus episodes. And I had some bonus things kind of in the works anyway.
Yes.
But we do have our stretch goals met, which means not only are we talking about Plan 9 from outer space 9 minutes at a time, we are going to look at the Disney film Ed Wood from 1994, starring Johnny Depp, directed by Tim Burton. And when I say me, I mean, I'm sorry. And when I say we, I mean me and my partner, Scott Morris, who is...
Who? Scort?
Scort.
Scort Morris.
Scort Morris.
Scort Mort.
Oh, boy. What just happened there?
Yes.
Scott is my partner on the Plan 9 show, and he and his wife, Tracy, will be joining me to talk about the movie Ed Wood.
Okay.
Which will be really cool. And then the other bonus episode, Scott and I will be taking a look at the movie Plan 9, which was a remake... I guess basically a remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Okay.
Starring people like Mr. Lobo in the role of Criswell, but he has a lot more to do in this version of the film. And Conrad Brooks actually is in the film as well. This movie was produced before he unfortunately passed on. Conrad Brooks was in the original Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Okay, so the stretch goal you haven't met yet is the commentary track that can be downloaded and then played alongside, correct?
Correct, yeah. So even though we're calling all this premium stuff, once these are produced and released, anybody can download them. They're going to have their own separate feed.
No, the commentary will be separate from that, and I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but those who haven't backed need to purchase it.
We'll work out some details on the fan commentary track, but that's the next stretch goal.
Yes. Yeah. And so it is exclusive to those who back. Yes. It is, because I know how much work goes into that. I know you've done it once before, and it is not easy. It's a lot of production value. It's a lot of research work, and it is going for free to those who back our thing, even the smallest amount.
Right. So anybody who contributes to the Kickstarter will get the fan commentary track.
Right. But
that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were saying something totally different.
No, but if you don't contribute, then you have to buy it at a higher cost than it would be to just donate a small amount to the Kickstarter.
But but you don't have to pay the stretch goal amount.
Oh, goodness. No. Wait, what? Did you think I was saying somebody had to pay $1,200 to get the No. That seems unreasonable, honey.
It is unreasonable.
Yes.
I'm having a lot of fun just thinking about what this Plan 9 podcast is going to be like. I'm excited, a little nervous, but I'm really jazzed up about it.
Yes.
And to give Plan 9 from Outer Space its proper respect, also having fun with it. You know, I know a lot of people call it the worst film of all time or so bad it's good, but that movie brings me a lot of joy, and I'm really excited to share that joy with everybody
else.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that you're going to cut out. I apologize if that came across as
best podcasting ever,
bossy as opposed to limit setting, but I know how much work goes into this, and you aren't giving it away for free if I have anything to say about it.
You're the only one with an income right now. You get to make that call. It's all good.
That's not
we already kind of implied that with the whole I'm going to blow all of your paycheck at the Lovecraft Film Festival thing.
Yeah, that's not happening either.
Well,
Again, limit setting, not bossy.
You get one limit
per night.
A quarter.
A quarter?
A season.
What is wrong with you?
You get one limit ever.
Yeah, how has that worked for you, honey?
Not so great. Anyway, I'm having a blast with the Plan 9. So listeners, tell your friends if you know anybody who's interested in Plan 9 from outer space. Share the link. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes. I don't remember what the short and tiny URL link is, so I'll mention it at the
Words are hard.
Stupid mind. Stupid.
Maybe Squirt can give the tiny URL.
I'll mention it at the end of the show.
Oh, right. We're almost there.
We're almost there. And Eric, again, thanks for writing in and thanks for your support. And thanks to everybody who supported the Kickstarter so far. We hit our goal within, 2 days?
It's amazing.
I am blown away.
But I'm glad because I know how much work will go into this to recording all the episodes and then editing all the episodes and then these stretch goals you have.
Well, and the regular rewards, too. The regular rewards are awesome. Original artwork and a wooden USB drive.
For Ed Wood.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think it's fair to get, an income from that.
Yeah, paying myself a little bit of a salary.
Pay yourself to do the work.
And if this goes well, we've already started talking about what the next premium podcast will be. Mm-hmm. And maybe even the third.
Well.
Yeah.
Look at you.
And I can say that they've also got the reputation of being the worst movies of all time. That's all I'm going to say. We call that a tease.
Sure.
In the business.
Hey, Monster Kid Radio.
Hey, that's you too, though.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Please promote this great event. Frankenstein accompanied by the Piedmont Wind Symphony. Love the show, man. Thank you, Greg R.
I think this email came in because I'm constantly saying, if there's anything in your neck of the woods you think Monster Kids will dig, let me know.
Yes.
I followed the link to this, and it is the original Universal Frankenstein, which is pretty bereft of original music.
Okay.
The early Universal monster movies didn't have an original score, usually. So what's happening is this movie's being shown, and there's an original score that's been composed that will be played live while the film is being projected. Now, the music is by Michael Shapiro, and I went and found his SoundCloud page, and the overture for Frankenstein is available there to listen to, and I shared it on Facebook earlier today. It's awesome. I really dig it, and I really hope there's a way to hear the entire score somehow. I'm going to reach out to the musician and maybe even the Piedmont people, because I would love to hear it, because that music sounds amazing. And of course, there will be a link in the show notes, but
right.
Did I put it on there?
It's Piedmont Wind Symphony. There is a www.com/Frankenstein. And also no www.soundcloud.com/Michael-Shapiro-14.
Right. I don't know if that means there's like 13 other Michael Shapiros on there or what, but it was there. So his other music's also available on his SoundCloud page, but if you look, you can find the overture, and it's awesome. And I think that's it.
Well, no. The last thing is, shout out to Doug F. and Jeff B.
Thank you for the reminder. The shout out to them is because I posed to the listeners the question, what should I do for episode 400? Episode 400 is coming. This is episode 387, which means we got 13 episodes, 13 weeks before the big 400. Mm-hmm. And both of those guys gave me some pretty cool ideas. And I'm open to any more suggestions.
Okay.
I don't know what we're going to do yet, but I like both of these ideas quite a bit. One of them, actually, I may follow up on and I don't want to wait till 400 because it's just so cool.
Okay.
And the other one actually sounds like a lot of fun, but a lot of work. But it might be worth it, especially since I'm not working and I have plenty of free time.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So if you want to help me fix that, and you have any audio editing needs, drop me a line at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. I charge around $20 an hour, and I work incredibly fast. I'll make all the other audio out there jealous of what you have. So yeah, just drop me a line if you're interested in any audio production. I got your hookup.
You are the hookup.
I am the hookup. Well, these were people that emailed us at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. I'll go over that again here in a couple of minutes here on the show. But big thanks to Brenda for coming back home. That sounded like there was a choice. Big thanks for Brenda.
Wait a minute. Was there not a choice?
Not. I mean, there was. No, wait. I'm just glad you're back.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm glad to be back. I love you.
I love you too, hon. Thanks for doing the email and doing all this stuff. And yeah. And thanks to the listeners for all of the support that was sent our way with everything that we've been dealing with. So
right.
Big thanks.
The podcast Kickstarter. It's been incredible.
It's amazing. Again, I'll make sure there's a link to the Kickstarter. And here in a couple of weeks, Scott and I are actually going to get together and record an episode 0. So that'll be coming soon. Mm-hmm. It'll come out in its own feed. Mm-hmm. But I'll probably put the 0 in the MKR feed as well, just to kind of cross promote a little bit.
Oh.
And help people find it.
What if MKR people don't want your episode 0?
They don't have to listen. I'm not forcing it.
What if it auto downloads?
Well, that's kind of how podcasting works, but I won't be offended if you just hit delete. I just get the download number. That's all I care about.
No. That's the second time you've said that, and it's so not what you care about.
No, it's really not. What I care about is engaging with everybody. And having this awesome community of people.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the episode 0 will be coming probably very beginning of October. Mm. Yeah, it couldn't be any earlier than that because Scott and I are recording it at the end of September. So it'd be kind of weird if we did it before then.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, anything else?
That's all. Let me feed your face.
Yeah, I want some dinner.
I know you're hungry because you can't think straight.
I know.
Gentlemen, we are witnessing a biological chain reaction, a geometrical progression of deadly menace.
It had started casually, insignificantly, as momentous events often do.
Look there. 2 points off the port bow.
The giant behemoth, the fire-spitting monster predicted in the Bible, its core a mass of lethal radiation. Rising from the depths of time, its strength enormous, its gargantuan ferocity a threat to London, to the world itself.
We must find a way of destroying this creature in one piece.
Judging by the beast's size, I would say it was powerful enough to drive a battleship.
Of course, its tremendous electric charge is what projects the radiation. That's what makes the creature so deadly.
Well, have you any concrete suggestions? Yes. First, block off the Thames.
The whole town seems deserted.
That monster's on the loose right here in town.
Anybody catch sight of this thing?
Well, a few kids playing in the street said he was 20 feet tall, covered with long hair, and had great big teeth.
Behind these empty streets, these windows shut in fear, lies the strange story of a young girl who knows the secret of the teenage monster. Fascinated by an evil demon, unable to control her sinister desires, she leads the monster to his prey, sacrificing an entire town to his insatiable lust for human life.
I don't like to be stolen from her. I don't like to be laughed at. Oh, but it's not going to happen anymore. Because Charles won't let it. He'll kill anybody who does. Even you, I think. Oh.
Joe Martindale came in this morning. Lost 6 of his blooded steers last night and a rider. The steers had their throats torn out and the rider, Bill Begley, was beat to death. It's that thing again.
I'll meet you back at the office. I'm going to have to go, Ruth. You stay in town. That thing's loose on the range again, not 15 miles from your mine. What was it?
It was that thing. Hairy and horrible.
Oh, it's awful.
Sheriff! I saw him, the monster, and he ran away from this barn carrying the girl.
A posse in panic, not knowing what they'll find. Man, beast, or demon from another world, as they pursue the loathsome killing thing they call the teenage monster.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Did you like what you heard? Well, let me know. Drop me a line at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Or if you want, you can call in and leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 503-479-5657. That's 503-479-5MKR. And can you call in or write in and let me know that you actually voted for Creature from the Black Lagoon for Best Movie and Best... Because, it's not that I'm hurt. I'm disappointed. Okay, seriously though, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Rally Awards or on anything that we've talked about on this episode or the previous 386 episodes of Monster Kid Radio. Of course, our contact information is available on our website over at monsterkidradio.net, where you're going to find links to everything you need to know about the podcast, everything that we've talked about here on the podcast, our Facebook page, our Facebook group, and the Kickstarter that Brenda and I talked about. The Plan 9x9 podcast can be found at tinyurl.com/Plan 9x9. And it's the number 9, both times, not spelled out. So PLAN 9BY 9. Anyway, head over there to check out the Kickstarter that we're running for the Plan 9x9 podcast. Check out the really cool rewards, the wood USB drive, the original artwork, and become part of that podcast. Help us make it possible. And like I said earlier, like we alluded to, if this one does really well, I've got a couple more in mind, and well, that'll be a lot of fun too. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. And again, thanks to everybody who's supported us that way. Thank you to everybody who's supported us through Patreon. Of course, we have a Patreon page. You can help support Monster Kid Radio proper. Through that, we have a link to our Patreon campaign over there on our website, or you can just go to patreon.com/Monster Kid Radio and support us that way. One of the levels on the Patreon page is for you to become a Toho level backer of the podcast. And what you get for that is you get your name included in the executive producer roll call segment of the show. We do that every month, or at least we're going to start doing that every month. And next week, you're going to hear a roll call of everybody who's helped support us at the Toho level or higher. So check out the Patreon page and see how you can support the show that way. I am going to ask you, though, to support the show by sharing the links, the podcasts, the tweets, the Facebook posts. Just let everybody know. The more, the merrier. We love having as many Monster Kids as possible around the virtual roundtable talking about monster movies. And next week, we're going to be talking about another one. Although I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be. Originally, it was going to be the Monster of Piedras Blancas, and it still very well may be. However, I'm trying to get a small piece of audio to put into that episode, and I don't have it yet. So I wanted to allow myself some wiggle room. You'll either hear the Monster of Piedras Blancas with Chris McMillan, or you're going to hear about a unique vampire movie called The Hand of Night from 1968. It's also known as Beast of Morocco, and we'll be talking about that with Alan Trump. So it'll either be that or the Monster of Piedras Blancas. That's what's coming up next week. Stay tuned. Just bottom line, stay tuned, and you'll get the next episode no matter what it happens to be. Thanks again to just everybody who's listening to the show, downloading the show, giving us honest reviews in the iTunes store, just being part of this Monster Kid tribe that I've somehow managed to find myself in. It's amazing, and I would not be where I'm at today, mentally, emotionally, and, well, successfully, if not for you guys and gals. Thank you for being part of the show this week. Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 unported license. Of course, that doesn't apply to the song Black Pyramid. That belongs to the band Agent Octopus, which you can find at agentoctopus.wixsite.com/Agent Octopus. There will be a link in the show notes. Pick up the album Bottoms Up, and you'll be able to hear the song Black Pyramid, as well as every other song on that album for $9.99. Check them out. Let them know that Monster Kid Radio sent you. My name is Derek Kim Cook. Talk to everybody next week. Ciao.